Hello, and thank you for watching this video on Spiny Dogfish Draft Addendum 7. I am James Boyle, the Fishery Management Plan Coordinator for Spiny Dogfish at the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. Draft Addendum 7 contains options to consider complementary action to Spiny Dogfish Framework Adjustment 6, which was recently approved by NOAA Fisheries to reduce a bycatch of Atlantic sturgeon. I'm going to start the presentation with some background information on the Commission, the purpose of the addendum, and the proposed options. And finally, I will provide all of the information on how to submit a comment, as well as how to find more information on the addendum and the public hearing process. For some background, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission was formed in 1942 by an interstate compact between the 15 states of the Atlantic coast. The Atlantic Coastal Fisheries Cooperative Management Act is what charges the Commission to create fishery management plans to provide for the conservation of coastal fishery resources and gives the Commission regulatory authority in state waters. The states from Maine to North Carolina participate in the management of spiny dogfish, and the management process works through quarterly meetings of the Spiny Dogfish Board, where each state is represented by 3 commissioners, and each state gets 1 vote in the decision-making process. In federal waters, spiny dogfish is managed through a joint FMP of the Mid-Atlantic and New England Fishery Management Councils, with the Mid-Atlantic Council taking the lead. These 2 councils make recommendations on management to NOAA Fisheries, which is responsible for implementing management based on their input and per federal requirements. The Commission's Spiny Dogfish Management Board initiated the development of Draft Addendum 7 at the August 2024 meeting and approved the draft version for public comment in October. The public comment period is ongoing through January 3rd and will include 3 virtual hearings. All public comments must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. on January 3rd, 2025, and the board is expected to consider those comments and take final action on the addendum in February. For background on why the board initiated this action, in August, NOAA Fisheries published a proposed rule that corresponds to recommendations from the Mid-Atlantic and New England Fishery Management Councils to implement overnight soak prohibitions to reduce Atlantic sturgeon bycatch. Those measures are for certain roundfish gillnet mesh sizes in specific times and areas and would apply to any vessel with a federal spiny dogfish permit. Roundfish gillnets are defined as not tie-down gillnets. The areas include both federal and state waters, and one objective of the Commission's Spiny Dogfish Fishery Management Plan is to strive for complementary action with the federal plan, which led to the initiation of this addendum to implement corresponding measures for harvesters that do not have a federal permit and only fish in state waters. The final rule from NOAA Fisheries was published on December 18, 2024, and the federal spiny dogfish measures will be implemented on May 1st, 2025. The federal rule establishes a prohibition on overnight soaks, which is defined as from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. within 3 areas, as shown in the figures, for federal spiny dogfish permit holders. The New Jersey area is shown in purple, and the blue areas from north to south are the Delaware and Maryland area and the Virginia area respectively. The draft addendum uses this naming to be consistent with the federal action, but note that the Delaware and Maryland area goes right up to the Delaware border, but does not overlap with Delaware state waters. In the New Jersey area, the prohibition would be for the months of May and November for mesh sizes between 5 and 10 inches, and in the Delaware and Maryland and Virginia areas, it would last from November through March for mesh sizes between 5¼ to 10 inches. However, some states have different permitting structures than the federal system. For example, instead of issuing permits by species, New Jersey issues licenses by gear and has a gillnet permit for their drift, anchored, and staked gillnets. Maryland has a tiered system with different permits allowed to harvest spiny dogfish at different trip limits. A general finfish license permits harvesters to take 1,000 pounds of spiny dogfish. If the harvester also has a striped bass permit, they can take 2,500 pounds of spiny dogfish, and a spiny dogfish permit holder can harvest the maximum of 10,000 pounds. Virginia, similarly to the federal system, issues permits by species and has a spiny dogfish specific permit. There are 3 options in the proposed management program of the addendum. Option 1 is the status quo, where the Commission takes no complementary action. In that case, if you do not have a federal spiny dogfish permit and you only fish in state waters, then the federal measures will not apply. Option 2 would apply the overnight soak restrictions to state spiny dogfish permit holders. Therefore, since New Jersey does not have a spiny dogfish specific permit, they would not need to make any change. Additionally, New Jersey already requires harvesters to have a federal spiny dogfish permit if they are to possess spiny dogfish for sale, and federally permitted vessels will already be beholden to the rule published by NOAA Fisheries. In Maryland and Virginia, Option 2 would apply the overnight soak prohibitions for the Delaware and Maryland and the Virginia areas for their spiny dogfish permit holders. This means that in Maryland, their striped bass and finfish permit holders that do not also possess a spiny dogfish permit may continue to harvest spiny dogfish at reduced trip limits within the Maryland state waters portion of the bycatch reduction areas. Option 3 is very similar, but with a slight wording change to prohibit all spiny dogfish harvest from overnight soaks for the specified mesh sizes, times, and areas, regardless of permit. This option would also look similar to the federal action as shown in the slide. Under this option for New Jersey, a gill net between 5 and 10-inch mesh in May and November could not harvest spiny dogfish from an overnight soak within the New Jersey area. For Maryland and Virginia, a gill net between 5 1/4 and 10-inch mesh from November through March could not harvest spiny dogfish from an overnight soak within those two areas. However, by not limiting the measure by permit type, this wording would cover the tiered system in Maryland by removing the ability for people to harvest spiny dogfish under the finfish or striped bass permits if they were also in those times and areas. That wraps up my overview of the addendum. You can submit written comments via mail, email, or fax to the addresses listed here. And just another reminder that the deadline for public comments is 11:59 p.m. on January 3rd, 2025. Comments received after this time will not be considered by the board. When submitting a comment, be sure to provide your name, state, and affiliation if you are representing an organization. And in your comments, be sure to address which options you support and/or which you oppose, why you support or oppose those options, and lastly, if there's any additional information that should be considered by the board. If you need more information on the draft addendum or other public hearings, you can find it online at the address listed here. The Commission has scheduled 3 public hearings to gather input on draft addendum 7. If you would like to provide comments, you can attend any of the following hearings, which are all via webinar. For more information on attending a public hearing, visit asmfc.org/calendar, or you can feel free to contact me at jboyle@asmfc.org. Thank you very much, and we look forward to receiving your comments.